Now that you know how to make and use an inclinometer, let's talk a little bit about the indirect measurement methods we have learned so far. There were 5 methods for measuring heights. A mirror. This is where you determine what you want to measure, put a mirror between the two of you, and back away from the mirror until you see the top of. Then you measure your distance from yourself to the mirror and the mirror to the object. The disadvantage of this method is you must be on level ground. There is shadows. This is where you stand near the object that you want to measure, and you measure your shadows. You have similar triangles between you and your shadow and the building's shadow and the building. The advantage to this is you do not need to be on level ground. However, the disadvantage is you do need sunlight. There's a process known as parallel objects. The ground and sights the top of the object, usually with a drinking straw, and another person then moves into place where the top of their head, the top of the object. You can then use similar triangles to determine the height of the object. There's also using the square measure. This is where you take a square measure, align it so that the top of the object and the bottom of the object are in line with the legs of the square measure, and then you look directly ahead at the object and find your focal point. Then you can use the hypotenuse corollary to the right triangle altitudes theorem to find the height of the object. It is actually rather tricky to find where you need to stand to align the legs of the square measure. This does not need to be on level ground, but it does take some experimenting to do. And finally, you can use your inclinometer and trigonometry like we discussed before. We also have 3 methods for measuring distances. First one was using similar right triangles. In this one you find 3 landmarks. These could actually be landmarks that you place down like cones or something like that. Once you have 3 collinear marks, start walking at an angle toward the object you want to measure until you can see your second landmark at a right angle. Then you walk toward the landmark, past it, until you can see the third landmark at another right angle. Comes in very handy here. I'm not talking about the compass for drawing circles, I'm talking about the compass for navigating. The second method is once again using the square measure. You take 2 landmarks on either side of the object you want to measure, align the square measure so that the 2 legs are aligned with the 2 landmarks. Then you look straight across at a 90-degree angle between the 2 landmarks, and then you can use the right triangle altitudes theorem. Landmarks, and finally you can use trigonometry. Using your 2 landmarks, you mark at a 90-degree angle, a set distance, then you turn the angle as you look at the second landmark. Now you know a reference angle, you know the adjacent leg, and you can find the opposite leg using the tangent ratio. Now finally, some pointers for your project. First, make a plan. Without a plan, this is going to fall apart. One of the things that you need to plan for is the fact that you won't get it right the first time. Part of your plan should be determining which method you want to use and practicing those methods on multiple objects. You might actually want to practice them on objects that you can measure directly, like doors, windows, ladders. That way you can check to see your accuracy of your measurements before you go about doing your project. And finally, start now. We are giving you 2 weeks to do this project for the simple fact that it is going to take 2 weeks. If you're going to use the shadows method, you're going to have to find a sunny day. Remember, we're coming into the rainy season, so sunny days are at a premium. If you're going to be using the square measure method, the inclinometer, you're going to have to practice using them. So make sure your plan includes starting now and practicing the methods that you plan on using. Good luck!